Hello, good evening from our studios here at Labone. This is News Night. I am Josephine Oppong-Yeboah. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, the Ministry of Health says a committee is reviewing the admission processes for eligible nursing students for 2017-2018 academic year. The official cloth for the celebration of Ghana's 60 years on launched in Accra with a call on Ghanaians to patronize it for the year-on anniversary celebration. Engineers dredging Korle Lagoon want squatters removed from the banks of the lagoon to make way for work to process. In business news, head of Ghana Cooperative Credit Unions Association Limited strongly backs move by Bank of Ghana to license all cooperative credit unions in Ghana in line with the new credit union law. And in news across our borders, Turkish armed forces and allied Syrian fighters have seized control of the key town of Al-Bab in the northern Syria from ISIL. Thank you for your time on News Night. In our first story, members of Parliament on Thursday debated on the various sectors in President Akufo-Addo's State of the Nation address delivered on Tuesday. While the minority in Parliament is of the view that most of the President's goals are unachievable, the majority is optimistic that it is possible to achieve.
On the floor of Parliament on Thursday, members of the House debated on President Nana Akufo-Addo's first State of the Nation address, touching on various sectors of the economy, particularly energy, finance, and corruption, among others.
Mr. Speaker, His Excellency also indicated they need to review the Renewable Energy Act to address most of the huge bureaucratic bottlenecks and discretionary incentives. Mr. Speaker, I was dumbfounded when the minority mentioned that they bequeathed to us a legacy debt and we must be grateful to them. It is unfortunate that we're not talking of leaving a legacy of profits, but a legacy of debts.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for the opportunity, but it is very, very clear that we laid a solid foundation in the energy sector. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
MP for K2 South, Fifi Kwete, and the MP for Old Tafo, Dr. Akotose, touched on finance.
In 2009 and in 2010, when the budget was presented in this House, the record shows that at the end of 2008, the fiscal deficit stood at over 14%, about 15%. Mr. Speaker, I also want to indicate that the President in 2017 is inheriting gross reserves of over $5.4 billion, as opposed to the predecessor government that in 2009 was inheriting gross reserves of $2 billion. At a time where, in terms of import cover, it could barely cover 1.8 months. So obviously the President hasn't got a lot to complain about because the situation today is far better than it was in 2009.
Mr. Speaker, order. When President Mahama took over from the late Atta Mills, economic performance was 14.4. President Mahama comes, 2012. What is it? Like you said, 9.3, isn't it? And you are doing infrastructure. You are supposed to engender growth, but you are coming down. 2013, Mahama does more infrastructure, economic growth, 7.3. 2014, Mahama is doing more infrastructure, economic growth, 4%. 2015, Mahama is doing gargantuan infrastructure, 3.9. Clearly, growth going down does not help you and I.
Member of Parliament for Tamale North, Alhassan Suhini, and Ofuase Airebi, Kojo Oppong-Yeboah touched on corruption.
I'm excited, Mr. Speaker, that His Excellency the President talks boldly about adding a major break to our nation's infrastructure when it comes to fighting corruption by introducing the Office of the Independent Public Prosecutor. And he quickly mentions that that will be firmly grounded in law and in accordance with our Constitution. Mr. Speaker, it is a major move which, if implemented, would ensure that all of us here across the sides of the aisle, various public officers, various politicians, are in themselves insulated in the risks associated with the job that we do, and that this office will help reinstill the confidence that the Ghanaian public needs to have in the public processes in fighting corruption.
For example, Mr. Speaker, if you have a situation where the first address to the media on an issue of 7 billion cedis as to whether it is arrears or it is lost is approached with the suspicion that it might have been stolen, you will not be able to fix the problem with such a mindset. If your mindset in approaching the problems that you are supposed to be dealing with is, first of all, that those who have handed over power to you may have committed a crime and may have stolen, you will be guided by that mindset into a ditch, and that will be very disastrous for this country.
Sitting resumes Friday, 24th February 2017.
Away from the House of Legislature, the Public Relations Officer of the Ministry of Health has revealed the establishment of a committee to review the admission processes for eligible nursing students for the year 2017-2018 academic year. The work of the committee would determine the reintroduction of the nursing student allowance, which formed part of President Akufo-Addo's State of the Nation's address some few days ago.
Reinstating nursing training allowances was one of the most contentious campaign issues that saw the NDC and the NPP diametrically opposed to each other. The NDC had withdrawn the nursing allowance on the grounds that it allowed for more students to be admitted into training institutions. The move by the NDC incensed students who were then receiving 450 Ghana cedis every quarter. Already, the NDC is alleging that the reintroduction of the nursing allowance will come with cuts in admissions into the nursing training schools.
The ministry is ready to implement a policy that will actually inure to the benefit of the people, the policy that will actually improve quality of care, introduction of allowances. This is what we were doing in the past, and if reintroducing it, we would make sure that it actually help in improving nursing training in this country.
During his State of the Nation address, the President reiterated government resolve to fulfill that promise.
The committee is currently meeting to determine the modalities, the needs, what goes into training for 2017-2018 academic year. When should we do the adverts? Which school should train what? Should we upgrade this school? Until that committee is done with their work, it will be difficult for me here or somebody somewhere to say that, okay, we are going to recruit more than 10 or we are going to recruit less than 10.
Currently, there are some 52,000 nursing trainees in various institutions, and it is expected this number will increase with the reintroduction of the allowance.
We will never compromise on quality as a sector, because we are in a peculiar sector. Life of Ghanaians is more paramount to us, so we cannot compromise on quality. We will make sure that at the end of the day, quality healthcare stands out.
Meanwhile, the committee set up by the Ministry of Health to review the admission process for eligible nursing trainees is expected to complete its work very soon, so that admission processes can begin in the second week of March 2017. Frank Nyonato, Metro News, Accra.
The Ghana 60 Years On Anniversary Planning Committee has launched the official cloth to be used by Ghanaians for the celebrations. The cloth was launched at a ceremony in Accra. Chairman of the event subcommittee, Lord Kome, urged Ghanaians to patronize the cloth for the year-long anniversary celebrations.
government believes in results. And it's a result-oriented government. When we say that we are going to do something, we mean it. We do it. We don't just talk, but we do it. Secondly, if there is an authoritative meaning to the President's aim of raising Ghanaian industry from the doldrums, it's the fact that Akosombo Textiles Limited, which has been working under capacity for years, has been given a new lease of life. This cloth, produced locally, Akosombo Textiles Limited. They produce it in a record time of 2 weeks. That is how the Ghanaian spirit should be. It is our own Ghanaian industry, Ghanaian enterprise. I tell you, we have the capacity. We have the creative force to grow this nation on our own.
Away from that story, we live in a world where exophobic and hate crimes are on the rise. A latest report released by Amnesty International revealed that in 2016 alone, there were serious violations of human rights in 159 countries of the world. People were killed or unlawfully jailed for standing up for their rights. Amnesty International now says that individuals, governments, and civil society organizations must step in to avert these human rights abuses in order to safeguard future generations.
The report by Amnesty International details the sad stories of human rights abuses across the world.
In Bangladesh, instead of providing protection for or investigating the killings of activists, reporters, and bloggers, authorities have pursued trials against media and the opposition for, among other things, Facebook posts. In China, ongoing crackdown against lawyers and activists continued, including incommunicado detention, televised confessions, and harassment of family members. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, pro-democracy activists subjected to arbitrary arrest and, in some cases, prolonged incommunicado detention.
In Ghana, red flags have also been raised about the rights of women and children, discrimination against people with disability, among other forms of injustices. The human rights advocates are poised to put in an end to these inhumane acts.
As the Secretary General of Amnesty International, Sally Shati, said, "We cannot passively rely on government to stand up for human rights. We are the people have to take action, with politicians increasingly willing to demonize the entire group of people. The need for all of us to stand up for basic values of human dignity and equality everywhere has seldom been clear."
The acting director of the Information Service Department, Elizabeth Ifwa-Esel, gave the assurance that the protection of human rights remains high on government's agenda. For his part, the Director of Operations at the Ghana Prison Service wants the President to grant amnesty to prisoners come 6th March.
I can report that the numbers in our prisons are coming down. Last year, we had 2 sets of amnesties that were granted, and that saw the population dropping by over 1,000. We have also made recommendations for consideration by His Excellency the President for the grant of amnesty to coincide with the 60th anniversary of our independence.
Amnesty International says it will continue to fight to ensure that every human being lives a dignified life irrespective of age, gender, color, religious or sexual affiliations.
This is News Night. We're going for a breather. Please stay. Hello again, you're still watching News Night with me, Josephine Oppong-Yeboah. In other news, engineers working on the dredging of the Odor River and Korle Lagoon are appealing to the government to clamp down on squatters along the banks of these water bodies. The engineers say that because squatters throw waste into the water, it is creating challenges for the completion of the project. Gabriel Oboda-Togwashon has the rest of the story.
For some time, we've been following up on the dredging of the Korle. We usually come around with the dredge masters officials to see the progress of work. And we are here today to know exactly if the work is moving steadily with regards to dredging of the Korle, whether they are meeting their targets and all that. So I'm joined here by one of their officials. He was here with me, I recall, a few months back. And then we had similar interaction. But is everything going well?
Well, as you can see, dredging is still ongoing, and hopefully we are looking at completing the targeted volume that is to be dredged within a matter of few months. But then challenges that we are facing at the moment with regards to the operations or dredging operations are the squatters and settlements along the drains. You know, when dredging is ongoing, you still have people throwing in broad daylight, throwing their waste into the drains with the hope of the water washing it down, oblivious of the fact that these materials get trapped at certain points, added to the ongoing siltation that is ongoing. They build up, resulting in bottlenecks, and as a result, you have restricted flow. You have open defecations along the lines. We've had a number of lives lost in the process.
Metro News will keep an eye on the development and keep you posted in subsequent bulletin. Away from that story, occupants of the Oppong-Yeboah market in the central region have called on government to sign a memorandum of understanding with them. They say until this is done, they will not make way for the construction of a new market in the town.
To show their anger at what they describe as moves to deprive them of their livelihood, the traders came to the market clad in red. The association told our news team that they had been given notices of ejection by the custodians of the land and asked to leave the market for the commencement of the project.
No compensation. What kind of way? There, Obita Sasso. No, I ate a particular assassin. No assassin running quick to was sure. There, or the assassin Baba Yaza, there, Wakado, just like that.
But the concerned Oppong-Yeboah market men and women believe that the assembly is not even fully aware of the construction of the new market.
I have gone to the municipal coordinating director and he was baffled as to why this project is not even in the books of the assembly. Yes, it may not be coming from the assembly, but if any commission or government agency is doing any project in any community, the first point of call is the municipal assembly, because they are going to make sure that they coordinate the activities of whichever contractor that is coming in. They are going to make sure that the works department engineer takes charge of the quality of the job. As of now, the documents that goes into the lease of this land bears the private company's name, which is not supposed to be so.
They are calling on the Fansiman Municipal Assembly to compensate them, provide alternative land for them to use as a temporary market, and sign a memorandum of understanding, guaranteeing them their places when the market is constructed.
Hello again. In business news, the general manager of the Ghana Cooperative Credit Unions Association Limited has strongly backed move by the Bank of Ghana to license all cooperative credit unions in Ghana in line with the new credit union law. He said this at the annual general meeting of the Ghana Revenue Authority Cooperative Credit Union Limited held in Accra.
The annual general meeting of the Ghana Revenue Authority Cooperative Credit Union, GRACO, which is held annually, affords elected officers the platform to give account of their stewardship to members. The event saw the convergence of officials of COA Ghana, the umbrella body of credit unions, officials from the Department of Cooperatives, representative of the Commissioner General, and fellow cooperators, who discuss ways through which the association can be strengthened to achieve its goals, in line with the new credit union law, which is to ensure that all credit unions in Ghana are licensed by the Bank of Ghana. General Manager, COA Ghana, Nana Kwesi Ejapon, indicated that a merger of the credit unions is the way to go.
Our credit union as small, compared with countries like Kenya. In Ghana, if you come to the civil service area here, we have about 3-4 credit unions here. Okay, we have treasury ladies, we have controller, accountant general, we have GRA, we have ECG, all of them. But if you go to Kenya, for instance, all such institutions within the same area actually come together to form one credit union. And if you do that, then the members benefit.
Chairman, Board of Management of Ghana Revenue Authority Cooperative Credit Union Limited, Godwin Aaron Monyo, welcomed the news.
When we merge credit unions, what happens is that we'll be able to mobilize resources and help the poor. So my advice is that credit unions will merge, and government should even resource the Department of Cooperatives to mobilize people, so that government can directly in touch with the poor.
He also assured members that the association will continue to offer innovative and lifetime financial solution services.
We are looking for a housing scheme for our members, and we're also looking at creating more opportunities, like opening more offices at the various regions to send the credit union closer to our members. We're also doing fixed deposits like the banks. Yes. We are even doing Western Union money transfer for the ministry community.
Hard-working staff, both past and present, including the immediate past Commissioner General of GRA, George Blankson, were awarded for their contributions to the association. Sharif Apia, Metro News, Accra.
Thank you, Prince. And in news across our borders, Turkish armed forces and allied Syrian fighters have seized control of the key town of Al-Bab in the northern Syrian from ISIL. And this is where we draw the curtains on News Night. My name is Josephine Oppong-Yeboah. See you again at 10 p.m. for the late edition of the news. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good evening.